The Healing Church traces its roots to Byrgenwerth and is therefore aware of the Chalice Dungeon's true importance. They contain much more than mere hunter trinkets. Indeed, they hid the very secrets of the old Great Ones, sought after by those with the insight to imagine greatness. What's up guys, I'm Dave Klein, and welcome to my lore video on the Healing Church. In this video, we're going to delve into the foundation of the Healing Church and what it would eventually become. It all began in the College of Byrgenwerth and the Tombs of the Gods, also known as Chalice Dungeons, which lay below the town of Yharnam.
Byrgenwerth is an old place of learning, and the Tomb of the Gods, carved out below Yharnam, should be familiar to every hunter. Well, once a group of young Byrgenwerth scholars discovered a holy medium deep within the tomb. This led to the founding of the Healing Church and the establishment of blood healing. In this sense, everything sacred in Yharnam can be traced back to Byrgenwerth.
The academics found a myriad of strange ritual remains within the dungeons, such as red jelly, stillborn infants born of a creature of unknown origins of the type found in some corners of the old labyrinth, tomb mold, cold blood flower buds, and in particular, a pearl slug. Of all the strange life forms that reside in the nooks and crannies of the old labyrinth, the slugs are a clear sign of the left-behind Great Ones. It was the pearl slugs that I believe led the scholars to investigate where they'd come from and what they meant. It led them to the discovery of the chalices, and that if they performed a ritual with these strange items, they could unlock deeper tombs. Let the chalice reveal the tomb of the gods, let the blood be the hunter's nourishment, and let ye partake in communion. It was here evidence of the Pthumerian superhuman beings that are said to have unlocked the wisdom of the Eldritch truth were discovered, and with that, the query as to how humankind could itself evolve once again to a higher plane of existence. Amongst those who discovered the tombs and the importance of what lay within were Provost Willem and Lawrence, who was either a pupil or colleague of Willem. Master Willem led the research into the meaning of the Eldritch items they were finding, and started to experiment with ways to unlock the Eldritch truth, declaring evolution without courage will be the ruin of our race. Together, both Lawrence and Willem began to discover the power of the Great Ones, and the importance of the ritual items needed to satiate a chalice. One of the basic ingredients used to satiate a holy chalice is the incoagulable ritual blood. They discovered that, as blood was important to beckoning the tomb of the Great Ones with the chalice ritual, it also drew them one step closer to achieving their goals of furthering the human race. The discovery of blood made their dream of evolution a reality. Metamorphosis and the excess and deviation that followed were only the beginning. While experimenting in blood, Master Willem realized the danger in it. According to the Beast Carol rune, the discovery of blood entailed the discovery of undesirable beasts. I believe beasts were actually discovered early on in attempts at evolution, with the beast being a horrific and unwelcome instinct deep within the hearts of men. Master Willem decided to search for an alternate means to connecting with the Great Ones, and at Byrgenwerth, Master Willem had an epiphany. We were thinking on the basis of planes. What we need are more eyes. He decided to search within in order to connect with the Great Ones, going as far as to blindfold himself and encourage the lack of outward vision. It was around this time Lawrence and Master Willem had a disagreement over how to handle their knowledge of the powers of blood and what to do about it. Lawrence seemed to strongly believe blood was a positive thing that could heal the ailments of those with deadly diseases. Master Willem, on the other hand, didn't think the risks were worth it and wanted to further explore alternatives.
Master Willem, I've come to bid you farewell.
Oh, I know. You think now to betray me.
No, but you will never listen. I tell you, I will not forget our adage.
We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. Our eyes are yet to open.
Fear the old blood. I must take my leave.
By the gods, fear it, Lawrence.
Lawrence left Master Willem in the School of Byrgenwerth in order to found the Healing Church and spread the message of blood healing. The Great One Udin, lacking form, exists only in voice. In discovering the Chalice Dungeons and the Tomb of the Gods, I believe Lawrence and Willem discovered multiple gods. The formless Udin was the god associated with blood, and human or no, the oozing blood is a medium of the highest grade, and the essence of the formless great Udin. Both Udin and his inadvertent worshippers surreptitiously seek the precious blood. I think it's likely Udin spoke to them, and could have been what allowed them the discovery of blood healing. In founding the Healing Church, Lawrence named his cathedral after the god of blood, the Odin Cathedral, and built it in proximity to the tomb of Odin itself. He took Master Willem's teachings with him, and paid homage to Willem as the clothing they would wear borrows heavily from Byrgenwerth's uniform design. He also took along with him Master Willem's teachings of outward sightlessness, as we find every character associated with the Healing Church to be without sight. Father Gascoigne, a former member of the Healing Church, chooses to blindfold himself. The creature in the cathedral ward indicates that it's without sight.
Oh, you must be a hunter. Very sorry. The incense must have masked your scent.
Additionally, Vicar Amelia, immediately associated with the Healing Church, chooses to blindfold herself. Interestingly, while Odin is associated with blood, YouTuber Terramans has found that Odin is also directly associated with sightlessness. Autoenucleation, or Oedipism, is a form of serious self-inflicted eye injury that usually results from mental illnesses involving acute psychosis. The word Oedipism deriving from Oedipus of Greek mythology, who gouged out his own eyes after having sex with his mother. Lawrence looked to spread the message of the healing blood of his church, and the Healing Church nuns were chosen for their merit as vessels for blood, and groomed as blood saints. The mere chance of being treated with their blood lent legitimacy to the Healing Church and communion. These nuns who would receive the healing blood would then provide their now good blood to the citizens of Yharnam afflicted with illness. In doing so, the people began to believe in the Healing Church, and helped raise it to power.
What afflicted me was incurable, but this town gave me hope. Their strange blood bought me time.
As you know, the Healing Church is the fountainhead of blood healing. Well, I'm a simple hunter, quite unfamiliar with the ins and outs of the institution, but I have heard that the holy medium of blood healing is venerated in the main cathedral.
There was a problem, however, one that the church tried to keep quiet. The discovery of blood entailed the discovery of undesirable beasts. It seemed blood and beasts went hand in hand. I believe this led to two things in particular, one being the church attempting to create variations on blood, and thereby trying to create a new good blood.
The church controls all knowledge on blood ministration, and all varieties of blood. That's your best bet if it's anything to do with unique types of blood.
I think Lawrence had good intentions with his Healing Church, and actually did pay heed to Master Willem's warnings to fear the old blood. But his way of handling it was to create new variations of blood. Meanwhile, the problem of beasts had to be handled, and Gehrman stepped up. He became the first hunter, and the hunter's emphasis on engaging beasts with speed, and therefore of selecting lightweight attire, no doubt traces back to Gehrman's own combat style. Lawrence helped Gehrman to create a workshop within the Healing Church, which would then be used to train future hunters. Ludwig would become the first of the specific Healing Church hunters, and I believe very likely was Gehrman's apprentice. An old hunter bone can be found at the old abandoned workshop, and is the bone of an old hunter whose name is lost. It is said that he was an apprentice to old Gehrman and a practitioner of the art of quickening, a technique particular to the first hunters. Meanwhile, Ludwig was the first of many Healing Church hunters to come, many of whom were clerics. I find it highly likely, even if the old hunter bone isn't Ludwig's, as the description says the owner's name is lost, Gehrman the first hunter, with his workshop located in the church, trained Ludwig himself. With the beast seeming to grow in strength, Ludwig the first hunter of the Healing Church set out to recruit Yharnamites to serve as hunters. He also crafted larger and more powerful variants of the typical workshop weapons, suggesting that the church anticipated much larger inhuman beasts. Now bear in mind, all of this was long, long ago. The Radiant Sword Hunter badge was given to heirs to the will of Ludwig. These hunters, also known as Holy Blades, are what remains of an ancient line of heroes that date back to a very early age of honor and chivalry. Lawrence eventually seemed to succumb to becoming a beast himself. Within the Odin Cathedral, placed upon an altar is a beast-shaped skull. By touching this skull, the player will receive Lawrence's memories of leaving Master Willem and Bergenworth to found the Healing Church, implying this skull belongs to Lawrence. Interestingly, within the Chalice dungeons, there's a bloodletting beast with a similarly shaped head. What becomes particularly odd is that yet another bloodletting beast exists within another Chalice dungeon bearing no head. Whether this means the missing head of the second bloodletting beast is Lawrence's, or it's simply a coincidence, I can't say, but it's something worth pointing out. Regardless of if Lawrence became a beast and died, or became a beast and disappeared into the Chalice dungeons, over time his influence over the Healing Church became warped, and things began to change. With Lawrence gone and Gehrman eventually disappearing into his hunter's dream, the Healing Church passed down from one vicar to the next. The gold pendant passed down among the vicars who head the Healing Church is a reminder of the cautionary adage, "Fear the old blood." Over time, I believe Lawrence's intention of spreading good became warped and distorted. The church hunters eventually began to don black and white variants of clothing, and these church hunters understood the early prevention of the Scourge of Beasts achieved by disposing of victims and even potential victims before signs of sickness manifest themselves. I find it likely the Healing Church actively tried to prevent the Yharnamites from realizing it was their blood causing the spread of the beastly curse. The church takes a heavy-handed, merciless stance towards the Plague of Beasts, an irony not lost upon the wielders of the most symbolic Kirkhammer. Hunts became a regular occurrence, especially as the Red Moon hung low, and the main gate of the Great Cathedral is shut tight on nights of the hunt, and could only be opened from the other side with this emblem. In other words, the captain's return and this emblem determined the end of the hunt. Meanwhile, they continued to search for cures and further means to evolve. The White Church Hunters were specialists in experimentally backed blood ministration and the Scourge of the Beast. They believe that medicine is not a means of treatment, but rather a method of research, and that some knowledge can only be obtained by exposing oneself to sickness. I believe it was, in part, this that led to the Scourge of Old Yharnam. Old Yharnam was afflicted by Ashen Blood, a baffling sickness that ravaged Old Yharnam long ago. The Ashen Blood ailment eventually triggered the spread of the beastly scourge. Ashen Blood also being a variation of poison, as antidote is used to treat it. While this is just a theory, I think it's possible Ashen Blood could have been caused by the White Church Hunters using experimentally backed blood ministration, especially considering they believed some knowledge can only be obtained by exposing oneself to sickness. Either way, this wasn't the only hand at play. We know from various lore notes scattered throughout Bloodborne that when the Red Moon hangs low, the line between man and beast is blurred. We also find a note in Old Yharnam stating the Red Moon hangs low, and the beasts rule the streets. Are we left no other choice than to burn it all to cinders? I believe this led to the worst catastrophe the church had ever come up against. Facing an entire town inflicted with Ashen Blood, triggering the spread of the beastly scourge, they decided the best course of action was to again take a heavy-handed, merciless stance towards the Plague of Beasts. When the hunt began, the Healing Church left behind the Old Yharnamites, blocking the Great Bridge to Cathedral Ward as Old Yharnam burned to the ground that moonlit night. And while this is my opinion, I don't think the Ashen Blood ailment was what caused the beastly scourge. Rather, I think this ailment was quickly spread and possibly infectious. Before this point, I believe beasts were an occurrence, but far less prevalent. But in the mind of the church hunters, perhaps all was not lost, as since the tragedy that struck Old Yharnam, fire has become a staple in beast hunts and is thought to cleanse impurity. They seem to gain the knowledge that beasts are weak against fire.
Once, a scholar betrayed his fellows at Bergenworth, and brought forbidden blood back with him to Canehurst Castle. It was there that the first of the inhuman Vile Bloods was born. The Vile Bloods are fiendish creatures who threaten the purity of the Church's blood healing.
The Vile Bloods were formed by the wealthy at Canehurst who took forbidden blood of their own. However, as this wasn't church-sanctioned blood, the Church with all of their power fought back. The corrupt are heretics in the eyes of the Church, thus subjects to the wrath of the Executioners. The Executioners, who essentially became the Healing Church's army, struck the Vile Bloods down with a vengeance, and their attire later became the basis for all church attire with its heavy draping of holy shawl. Meanwhile, with Lawrence and Gehrman and the other founders of the Healing Church gone, the upper echelons of the Healing Church eventually became filled with other inquisitive minds in their own right. The Healing Church continued to send tomb prospectors into the Chalice dungeons who explore the labyrinth on behalf of the Healing Church. Most tomb prospectors, members of the Healing Church chosen to explore the old labyrinth, are unable to withstand the weight of the old knowledge and go mad. Eventually, they did find another chalice, the Great East Chalice. The Great East Chalice became the cornerstone of the choir, the elite delegation of the Healing Church. It was also the first great chalice brought back to the surface since the time of Byrgenwerth and allowed the choir to have audience with Ebrietas. The choir itself becoming one of the two groups who would become the highest in power of the church, with the upper echelons of the Healing Church being formed by the School of Mensis based in the Unseen Village, and the choir occupying the upper cathedral ward. These two factions took Master Willem's teachings to heart and seemed to look for means other than blood in order to evolve and transcend humanity. Alright guys, that wraps up this lore video on the Healing Church. I know I didn't delve into the choir, School of Mensis, or Executioners and Vilebloods, as I didn't want this video to run too long, and I think those are topics deserving of their own videos. I also think it's important to understand the Healing Church itself before delving into these. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to check out my other lore videos, or for something a little more fun and lighthearted, check out my super shows, and I'll see you next time. Happy hunting. That there is a way, a potential for humans to evolve beyond their natural limitations. Dr. Wily at some point reprogrammed the robots to do his bidding and thereby try to take over the world, and it's your job as Mega Man to stop him. Of course, you don't get to celebrate for too long, as it turns out your next task is to talk to this thing! Ah! I don't like it!
But when either spamming buttons or rapidly pressing a singular button, you're able to break out of a grab much earlier. Now this doesn't work for every enemy, but I have found that it works for a good amount of grabs, and it's definitely useful in a few boss fights as well.